Hi, I'm F. Reid Lyman.
And I'm Pete Shippen.
What are we going to say? Produce like a pro. Mother. I'm F. Reid Lyman.
And I'm Pete Shippen.
And we're here to encourage you to make good music great again. I'm F. Reid Lyman.
And I'm Pete Shippen.
And we just want to say, great music wins.
Cheers.
Cheers. Just make it work. I know you can make it work.
Hello everybody, hope you're doing...
Sorry. Sorry everyone, sorry.
Sorry. He's actually English.
Sorry.
So wait there, are you doing marvellously well?
Huh? Marvelously. Yeah.
You are? It's my friend, Mr. F. Reid Shippen.
Hello.
I've been here all day, but I'm still going to pretend I'm just seeing you for the first time. How are you?
So good to
Are
see
you doing
Always,
well?
Warren. Yes, I'm doing well, thank you.
So we've been here before, obviously,
Yep.
and we've done a couple of interviews here.
We have.
And we did one by Skype. The first one we ever did was via Skype, wasn't it?
Really?
Yeah, I
No,
feel like
think
we
you were
did
here
Skype.
twice.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Trying to remember.
Welcome back.
Welcome, thank you. And we've done like gear talk, and of course we'll link to those videos too. And we've done probably all kinds of different discussions. But hanging out with you is a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
And we cover
Likewise.
a lot of bases, music, everything.
Politics.
In life. Politics, the whole schnizzle.
Yeah.
And I think the thing we started touching on was like people, gear, things, whatever it is that really inspires us and makes us want to do this crazy music business thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I like hearing other people's inspiration. I like the way you put it with mixers. What was the phrase you used? They get a pass. They get a free pass.
Oh yeah, they get passed. Like so, you know. I mean, there's so much great work out there. You can hardly keep up. But there's a handful of records where it's so good and so mind blowing that you're like, all right, they get a pass. Like anything they do, if all they do from now on is like transcripts of the local codes meeting at City Hall, like I don't care, because that record, the one record that they did that was so incredible, it's so good. Like I hope to God that I get to do one record in my life that even sounds half as good as that one. Like so inspiring.
Give us some examples.
Okay,
I
will give you some examples. All right, first victim, right here from Nashville, a guy named Gary Pachoza. Phenomenal engineer, phenomenal producer. Like he's super talented and a super nice guy. Makes incredible beer, full on incredible beer.
I met him last night here.
Yeah, no, he's a fantastic guy, and he has somewhere in his house a milk crate full of Grammys, just for producing. Although I think he's gone 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 on Best Engineered Record. I don't know, Gary, you can set us straight on that. But so he did a record called "Forget About It" for Alison Krauss and Union Station, and it was actually a huge favorite at our house. In fact, for years, my daughters wouldn't go to sleep unless they were actually listening to that record. But
beautiful.
The engineering on that record is so perfect. Like, there is not a single thing that I would ever consider change. I mean, it's so masterful and so brilliant that, Gary, you get a pass. Like, I mean, that's like, I can't even imagine how you even begin to do something that good. It's absolutely incredible. It's such a gorgeous record. So, I listen to stuff like that and I either get inspired or depressed. But yeah, I mean, that's the first one that usually comes to mind for me is "Forget About It" by Alison Krauss. And I know I've talked to Gary a lot about it because it's one of my favorite things. And he said at the time he was actually going through a lot of things in his personal life that he needed to channel into something and get that energy out. And he ended up, because he was doing that record, he ended up channeling into that record. So, it's just a fascinating record. If you haven't heard it, you listen to it. It is absolutely perfect. It really is.
Is there anything you could, I know talking about music is like dancing about architecture, but is there any way that you can articulate like just anything that's just still to this day you have no idea why it's so amazing? Is it the vocals, the performances, the way it's captured, or
Well,
just
okay,
all of the above?
In complete fairness, the people that are playing and singing on this record are some of the best on the planet, right? When you've got Alison Krauss singing and Jerry Douglas trading off on dobro and stuff, I mean, it's just amazing. But it's just perfect. I don't know how to describe it. I listen to this record and I just disappear into it. Like I feel like I wake up after the record's done and just like, whoa, where was I? It's just amazing.
We will be listening intently.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic record. Like if you want to learn how to engineer and mix acoustic music, like I dare you to do better than this record.
Wonderful. And what studio was it recorded at?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Gary. I know that it was mixed. It was mixed at a place that is 17 Grand, I believe, is where it was mixed, and that no longer exists. I think that's Condos now on Music Row, unfortunately. And I think it was mixed. I want to say it was mixed on an EVR, but I may be mistaken. But yeah, it's just brilliant. Like it's one of those records that you hear and you're like, I should just quit and work at Starbucks. So they have healthcare.
I think it's like 30 hours a week minimum.
Yeah, it's something like that. I've looked into it.
Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. Yeah, Gary's forgotten more about doing high quality acoustic music than I will ever know. So yeah, I love listening to that record. It's genius.
Any other people?
Well, okay,
Records?
so yeah, I mean, we gotta run down a short list at least. Man, Massenburg, Joshua Judge's Ruth is brilliant. From the first opening piano salvo that Matt Rawlings played, he's incredible. But just the color and the shape and the textures and the beauty of that record is just unbelievable. It's a little quiet. Maybe it could use a little more boost in mastering, George, but he'll hate for me to hear that. Sorry. No, I'm just kidding. It's just a masterful record. That was the record that made me want to learn how to, and I'm still trying to figure out how to cut things that seem that effortless but intimate, Like you feel like Lyle is singing directly to you, like up close and personal, like grabbing your face and just like singing right here. And I know that, George had his amazing gear and the EQs and the preamps. And I also want to say on the geek side of things, I think that was a Stephen Paul modified U67 with the really thin diaphragm or whatever it was. Lyle Lovett's a very eclectic and interesting singer and personality.
I know. I don't know the Alison Krauss one. I'm going to have to, but I know the record you're talking about. I feel like there's no. Talking about this last night. There's a lot of music at the moment where people are singing over acoustic guitars and pianos, and they're too aware. They're too kind of like, oh my God, I'm singing really sensitively. Lyle Lovett just sings that way. He's just got so emotion. There's no sort of like self-awareness of just like, oh my God, I hear my voice in the verb. It's just, he just is.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way of describing it. Maybe you can describe it better.
I totally agree. I don't know. I can't tell if he's just deeply sincere or if he's seriously with me, like on purpose, but it's his delivery, his phrasing, his just everything. And that band was unstoppable. I mean, let's face it, a lot of these great records are getting amazing musicians in the room. And, what did Quincy say? Like leaving room for God to walk through the room. Yep. Just not getting in their way.
He said that in reference to Stevie Wonder. Okay. Like, what was the brilliance of Stevie Wonder? He always leaves enough room and always leaves. Stevie Wonder always leaves room for God in the room. Yes, and I love that. Just like getting your ego out of the way.
Well, I find a lot of God in Stevie Wonder recordings. In fact, we can talk about that for a minute. The canon. I mean, the canon is large, but Talking Book, Fulfilling This First Finality, Songs in the Key of Life, and Intervisions. Those four records are a complete musical education. Like you could do a PhD, you could work for the rest of your life trying to figure those records out.
Songs in the Key of Life for me is just like,
That's
all my hairs are standing on end, by the way. My dad only listened to classical music and some jazz, and we had like one or two rock and roll albums that were worthy. One of those everybody knows is The Night at the Opera. That was present for me when I was a kid. The other one was Songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
And he had that on 8-track cassette. So when we were driving to go on holiday, because we always used to do, holidays in the same country, we didn't go anywhere expensive. And so it'd be long driving trips, and on goes the 8-track of Songs in the Key of Life. And it was like, I just have so many incredible memories of that album.
It's just brilliant. Oh, and honorable mention, Overjoyed from In Square Circle. Like, that song was obviously left off of Songs in the Key of Life. Like, it totally belongs to that set. So, not that the other stuff is bad, but that stuff is just mind-numbingly good.
Yep.
Just incredible. Yeah, what else? I feel like we should switch over to some rock stuff.
Give us some rock references.
Well, I mean, you and I were both talking earlier about our friend Michael Beinhorn.
Sure.
And, he's done some literally genre-defining records. And, of course, the one that stands out the most to me was Super Unknown. Like,
yeah,
it's
a masterpiece.
That Soundgarden record is just ridiculous. That makes me want to quit. I still don't know how he pulled that one off. And then, what else? AC/DC, Back in Black.
Back in Black. For me, it was actually Highway to Hell.
Really?
Yeah, because I was a little kid and other kids at school would play it. And so I got into AC/DC through Highway to Hell. And because it was the last Bon Scott record, And when I was, so it just means that sort of means a lot to me. So it's still Mutt Lange, so it's still that great production, but with Bon Scott. Now, don't get me wrong. Back in Black is an absolute masterpiece. I just have an emotional connection.
No, I get it. And that, that's the key really is emotional connection, right?
Mm.
I'm sure we could sit here and think of records that sound absolutely horrible, that have such a great emotional connection.
Yep.
Like London Calling, maybe.
Sure.
Like, does that sound great? I don't know. Ramones stuff, does that sound great?
London Calling probably, because there's Bill Price. I think it's Bill Price, so probably pretty darn good engineering. But I know what you mean. It's like what comes first. Like Raw Power is the one I always use. It's a disaster of a recording and mix, but that's what almost makes it even more exciting. That when Search and Destroy comes in, and then the guitar solo comes in easily 6 to 9 dB too loud. Not just a little loud, but like up here. I still have remember that visceral response of me throwing off my dad's headphones when it first came in, because it was so loud because I cranked it. But it made me turn it down, put it back on and go, hee, like I discovered something as a teenager. I've discovered something. Ooh.
Well, and and that's the brilliance about being that age, right? So I remember the first time I sent away for the Columbia Record Club, right? And this stack of vinyl came. And in that stack of vinyl was American Fool by John Cougar, Foreigner Records.
Foreigner 4.
Men at Work.
Men at Work, yeah.
Business as Usual, I think. Rush, Moving Pictures.
That's an amazing record.
That I probably drove my parents crazy by playing the first 23 seconds of Tom Sawyer over and over and over. I never heard anything that was that cool, and I just wanted to be that person. Actually, the one that really got me, I distinctly remember this, is the Cars record that Mutt Lange did. Mm-hmm. Heartbeat City, right? Had this song Magic on it. And it started out with this like synth thing and this like building tension and the drum fill, and then the song just started, and there was all this great backgrounds and all these great little flourishes. It's Mutt, right? Like, so it's, and I literally remember my grandfather had a cabin in the woods of Pennsylvania. It was like a 6.5 hour drive from our house in New Jersey. And I brought my big ass boombox that took like 20 batteries and my Koss headphones that would hurt your ears because they weren't comfortable. Yeah. And I listened to that song over and over and over. I listened to that song the entire ride, just trying to figure out why it made me feel like so awesome. And that's probably what got me into this business.
Oh, I love hearing that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just chasing that, like, man, yeah, you can actually like do things that make people feel this way. Like, that's incredible. So yeah, that kind of just blew my mind. And it was a long time after that I finally got into this business, but I remember that as the watershed moment where I guess if I had been more self-aware, I would have figured it out a lot earlier.
I think it happens the way it's supposed to happen. I think, I speak very fondly of A Night at the Opera, and that was the moment that definitely changed my life because I never really heard any kind of rock and roll till I heard that. So that was a big thing. But I do think it's years later that I identified the moment.
Right.
It wasn't like, I wouldn't want to be watching this video and thinking that one of us put on a record and went, that's it, I have to be a producer, engineer, mixer, or, you know what I mean?
I didn't know it was a job.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a job.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I read the names on the back. I saw, all the band names and Roy Thomas Baker and all that. And I read all that, but I didn't know what it meant.
Right.
I was a kid,
Right.
But I thought it must be a cool job.
Well, and another watershed moment I can remember, and I've talked about this before, is I grew up in New Jersey, right? So when Born in the USA hit,
Sure.
It was a big deal. And Bruce lived the next town over. Well, he had a house in Rumson, which is the next town over, and a house in Colts Neck, which is about 15 minutes away. So we saw him on a fairly regular basis around town at the beach, all that. My high school soccer team used to go running at the Rumson Park. It was a new park that had a really nice running track, and he would come out and he would just be running there, so we would all run together. Like, nice. Super cool guy, right? But when Born in the USA came out, it was so big in Jersey because he was ours, right? He was our guy. That I remember distinctly driving down Oxford Avenue in the passenger side of my friend Colin's car, and we were listening to Born in the USA on the radio, and we had the windows down, and we turned off the radio, and you could just hear the song blasting from every house, every radio, everyone was listening to it. And that's when I went back and dug into that record and discovered Bob Clear Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Which
is a whole massive conversation.
Oh my gosh.
We can just open up now.
Yeah, forget it. That's, like, where do you start with him?
I don't know. Because what ends up happening is I hear these mixes and I'm like, Woman in Chains comes up all the time. And I'm like, oh, this is a masterpiece. And then you find out, mixed by Bob Clear Mountain. It's like,
Bryan Adams, it's mixed by Bob
Clear Mountain. And it's also, I think, mention the first couple of records, which are like these masterpieces of maybe this is the wrong way to describe it, but like preservations of performances. The acoustic kind of organic records, which are just so remarkable because they just seem to enhance and preserve an amazing performance. The thing about Bob Clear Mountain's work in those days, in the 80s stuff, everything was, I wouldn't say synthetic, but it was like everybody was trying really hard to get great sounds. You would the room mics were not as important as the reverb that created the sound of the snare.
Sure.
And he's pretty much managed to be not the only guy, but one of the only guys that you don't listen to and go, oh yeah, the 80s. You just listen to it and go, oh, great music. You know what I mean? It's not dateable.
Right.
If that's the right way of putting it.
I don't know. I mean, people may go back and listen to some of the stuff we're talking about and they'll be like, these guys are old and this stuff is crazy. But, I remember this. It is about the emotional content. Because when I go back and listen to Magic by the Cars, it sounds good. It's bright. There's not much bass. It's kind of the sign of the times. But in my head, it's massive. Right. Clear Mountain, actually, an obscure cut of his, one of my favorites, is a song called Fallen Angel. It was the first song off of Robbie Robertson's solo record. Daniel Lanois producing. I'm sure Eno was in there. Peter Gabriel playing keyboards and singing backgrounds. And the whole song kind of just sneaks in this whole just soupy, gauzy, like just this amazing fade in to a song, and it's just, it's beautiful. And then when Robbie starts singing, like everything focuses and everything just goes super clear. And I was just like, how do you do that? I want to know how to do that. That and Tempted by Squeeze is probably just the most perfect mix ever.
Wow.
Like it's exactly what that song needs. Like it's just perfect.
I hadn't heard anybody ever reference that. It's one of my favorite songs and one of my favorite Squeeze songs. That's really
It's a
interesting.
brilliant mix. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
I think it's so brilliant that I never thought about it.
And that's probably the indication of like the perfect mix is you never think about, wow, this is a great mix. It's just
Yeah, I hear the song and I'm like, this is one of the greatest songs ever written. It's, I mean, what is it? It's a bunch of mid-20s English guys channeling soul and, you know, Stax Atlantic, their version of it, Motown.
absolutely.
And it just comes through. Isn't it Paul Carrack as well? It's like everything, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and then and then that opens the door to another like he gets a pass is Kevin Killen on Peter Gabriel's So record. I still don't understand how good that record is.
Yeah, I mean, when Sledgehammer comes on, I dare you all. We're going to make the playlist, by the way. Reid's suggestion before we did this is that we create playlists. So we'll do a playlist of all these songs we talk about on Spotify. Sorry, maybe we'll do a Tidal one as well for people that are going to argue about that. But we'll definitely do a Spotify playlist. Tony Levin taking drumsticks, cutting off the ends and taping them to his fingers. So go and listen to that bass sound, that sound as he hits the strings with his right hand.
Which can you think about how difficult that is. And at that point he was playing a Chapman stick, right?
I don't know if it was a Chapman stick. It might have been.
I think it was. I mean, I know there was a lot of Chapman stick on that record.
I saw him with Crimson, and he was playing a Chapman, and Trey Gunn was playing a Chapman, and they were swapping off Music Man. No, Trey just stayed on the Chapman, but yeah, I mean,
Tony Levin,
I mean, absolutely. That for me is like a flawless album, a flawless song, everything that we want. The video comes on MTV or Top of the Pops where we were in England, and the video's incredible. It's just a work of art all around. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, he's old. I think he was like 34. He'd done his first Genesis record in like 68, 69 when he was a teenager. He'd already done like six Genesis records? This was his fourth or fifth solo record. The guy's like 11, 12 albums into his career at only 34 years old.
That's incredible.
I know, it's like...
And so was the spark that lit off a series of records that are incredibly deep and complex and just gorgeous. The next three, So, Us, and was it Them?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I mean, if you want a masterclass in how to with people's minds with audio, listen to some of the Chad Blake stuff on those later records. Like there is this incredible distortioned, like out of the speakers moving around you, just like, I mean, it's just, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And, and speaking of people get a pass, like nobody makes more sonically interesting records than Chad Blake. He's just a monster.
I met him last year when I went to the Air Studios event. And I just got this feeling of like let's just hang. I wanted to be like, I wanted to do all that stuff. And then I realized he just wanted to hang out and just talk about some music and,
stuff.
Nice day today, you know what I mean? And I like that because I just feel like he's just a worker amongst workers and he just wants to do his best. I got that feeling of like, somebody that, you know what I mean, is suiting up every day, rolling up his sleeves and doing great work.
Well, people lose sight of the fact that people who make it to the top of
humility is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, people who make it to the top of their profession have put in the work, and I'm sure I could spout a couple of names right now that everyone would want to get all charged up about, but the simple fact is the reason why we're loving them or hating them or whatever you want to do is these guys worked for decades. Mm-hmm. Just kicking ass. Mm-hmm. We might as well get into the brothers, but I remember one of the first records that made me just be like, what the hell is going on is that Stevie Winwood record that TLA did. Yeah. Was it CLA or TLA?
No, it was CLA.
Yeah.
Arc of a Diver.
Yeah. And it was just genius. Like it was fantastic.
It was interesting because I worked with Tom with my band. He mixed my band in 96, 97. And I loved Ark of the Diver. You want to see a chance, take it.
Yep.
And he's like, oh yeah, my brother did that. And that at that time, Tom was the radio guy. Every indie rock song was mixed by Tom Lord-Howard. Do you remember that period, like mid-late 90s?
Absolutely.
Everything. And he was like talking up his brother, like, oh yeah, you think I'm good? You should check out my brother. He did Steve Winwood. And I think he won a Grammy for it, and he was super young in those days. Yeah. So
I have a good TLA story. I wasn't there, but I worked on a couple records for a guy named Owsley, Will Owsley. And he was a monster guitar player and a monster singer. And we did these records here in Nashville with co-produced by a drummer named Chris McHugh, who's just ridiculous, like insane. So they went down to South Beach to mix with TLA. And I forget what song it was. There's actually a song on the Owsley record called I'm All Right that you should check it out. It is a brilliant rock mix. It just hits like a hammer. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's going to be in the Spotify playlist.
Okay, yes, that's definitely
it's in the playlist. These are all in the playlist.
But so Will told me later, and I think Q was there with him, Chris McHugh. I think he was there too. But Will told me later that like they went down there and they listened to a mix or whatever mix it was, and Will was like, "Oh my God, this is just amazing! Like this sounds incredible." And if we can just get this and then we'll do a vocal up and we'll be done, like we'll be good. He said that Tom was like smoking a cigar and he goes, vocals plenty loud there, bass. Put the cigar back in and just went back to mixing. Which I was always like, man, to have the confidence to just be like, you know what? Vocal's fine. Vocal's good.
Yeah.
Amazing. I was a huge fan of tons and tons of stuff that he did. And you know what? We should probably switch over to a little bit of East Coast love and
sure.
Talk about Bob Power and all of the incredible hip hop stuff that came out of New York. All the Native Tongue stuff, Tribe Called Quest, like all that stuff, just absolutely brilliant and a completely different way of mixing.
Sure.
And especially back then when you're trying to mix hip hop through an old analog console, and in those times probably not an incredibly great console, right? Because I don't remember what was at wherever he was working. Unique. There's people out there that can tell you all this stuff.
Was a Magic Shop?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't know, but he got stuff banging but not pumping, and like you get the low end coming through where it's not like changing others. It's just incredible.
Well, there's also that period of hip hop also had like kind of a graininess which sounded so fresh when you first heard it.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to the happy, beautiful, lovely, transient kind of roundness of tape. And yet, because they were using kind of what we now would think of as primitive samplers, and they were performed. I remember talking to Greg Gordon about it, about Takes a Nation of Millions. He said it was all just, it was all performed. Mm-hmm. There was no like, take a bar, paste.
No.
If you wanted a 3-minute pop song, hip hop song, sorry, it was played in or triggered samples like this.
It was played in, and it was played in on a SP1200 or an Akai MPC60, and like that contributed to the feel of it, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that the SP1200 didn't have a lot of sample memory, so you would speed stuff up on your turntable and sample it and slow it back down, so it would take less memory, but it would also get grainy, and those were 12-bit things that had weird filters, and they just sounded awesome, amazing. I think a lot of the later Beastie Boys record, the Hello Nasty record, a lot of that was done on SP1200. You can tell it has a very unique sound to it. Yeah. Which, by the way, is another unsung hero engineer, Mario Caldato, who did all that Beastie Boys stuff. Like they were groundbreaking from Paul's Boutique. I mean, they were groundbreaking on License to Ill, but when Paul's Boutique dropped, Paul's Boutique is still ahead of its time. That was an incredible record. Yeah. Like those guys, unbelievable. So
what I like is that you have incredibly eclectic taste. That would be the understatement of the decade. Incredibly eclectic. I love the fact that you work hybrid and you figured out what the best of the SSL can be for you.
Maybe I just haven't figured out how to do everything digitally well. I think Chad's kind of nailed it, but I still haven't figured it out. I do this because I like the way it sounds.
Right, but you've also, if you don't mind me pointing out, your faders are taped. You hit it, you know how to hit it. You know what you want from your console. You use it. So, I don't know, it's not like you're sitting there with the console there having to do 5 hours worth of recalls every day to turn a hi-hat up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think you have figured it out, if you don't mind me saying.
All right, I'll take it.
And by that, you're using arguably the best of digital and the best of analog. Everybody's going to interpret it differently, but that's what you've done. So, being that you're so eclectic and I know you have a lot of stories. Is there any one piece of gear that you coveted?
Okay,
I haven't primed it.
All right,
because I know everything's going to have a.
I can't believe that I own Blue Stripe 1176s.
Right.
I don't remember. I don't even want to think about how much I paid for those. But we
didn't have them in England. I don't think they made it over.
Really?
To the UK. Well, if they did, it would have been because they're less common than the other ones. So outside of America, why would
they probably just didn't make enough that they got over there. I mean, they only made a couple hundred, and then they upgraded them.
Right.
To make them better.
Yeah.
Which they probably were. I actually remember talking to an old Neumann. I think it was a Neumann engineer who worked for Urie, and he said to me, "I don't know why anybody would want to run audio through an 1176. It's completely nonlinear. The transformers ring. There's so much distortion." I was like, "Yep,
exactly." Yeah.
So that's what's great about old gear is it's unpredictable and it has character and color. Like what I love about consoles is when you think about it, when you're working in the box and you put a stereo EQ on a stereo channel, both sides are exactly the same. When you do it on a console or you do it outboard, they're never the same, which means that weird phase shift or that weird disparity makes things sound just a little bit different or a little bit wider. And then when you add that again and again and again and again, it all kind of adds up to something that I really like. Or that maybe I'm not good enough to get around because I need this. This is my crutch, right? So, I just love using the analog stuff. And I've tried a lot to do stuff all digital. And I do records all digital when you need to. When you're mixing 450 tracks of 3 passes of orchestra and all that stuff, and you have to print it to 40 stereo stems and stuff like that for film and TV stuff, like you have to do it digitally.
Sure.
And that's absolutely fine. I'll still run stuff out analog and print it and pull it back in, and but there are limitations because we can't at this point afford to go to a studio in Hollywood that has a desk that has 160 inputs and and like mix it on that for 6 to 8 weeks. So that's back in the day. That doesn't exist anymore. And thank God that we can have the power in a little Mac Mini to do that in our houses.
Oh yeah, it's insane, isn't it? The processing power.
It's incredible. Yeah.
So tell us, how did you acquire those Blue Stripes?
I don't remember. I really don't. I do remember working on enough records to feel fortunate that if I wanted something, I felt guilty, but I was like, I can actually afford one of these now. Like, that's incredible. Like, that's amazing. And I always tell, I tell the joke, like one of my greatest fears is that someday my wife will sell all this gear for what I told her I paid for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just, they're fun and they're probably noisy and they're probably half broken and who cares?
And probably one doesn't sound like the other one.
No, they definitely, actually, these are two, one's named Obi-Wan and one's named Darth because one's really bright and one's dark. They sound phenomenal. I love stuff with character.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell.
Yeah.
With the whole mix breakdown we did, everything is character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all, just trying to make
whether it's analog or digital, you're always looking for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And fortunately, we've got a lot of really cool character things now that we can do digitally. So, it's a really exciting time to be in music in general, honestly. Yep. There's a lot of music getting made from a lot of people. The barrier to entry is low, and then you're going to get a lot of garbage, let's be honest, but you're also going to get some brilliant stuff that never would have come out back in the day when you had to have a record deal and you had to have $1 million and you had to have 6 months and and all of those things had to align. you know, now you've got someone like what's her face? Girl.
Billie Eilish.
Yes, Billie Eilish. Yeah. Now
it
that you've got
Eilish?
someone
Eilish?
like Billie Eilish,
Yep.
who's making really compelling, really killer, just really vibey and cool music out of her bedroom.
Yeah, her and her
Right.
brother, yeah.
Yeah, with her brother. Like that's awesome, because I don't think we would have heard her, or we would have heard Lord, or we would have heard a lot of these people if they had to claw their way through, you know, the machine.
Well, fantastic. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank
you
you.
guys for showing up for it. Like, this is super cool.
So we're going to put a playlist of all these songs we're talking about. And maybe there's multiple songs from different records, but there will definitely be a playlist. What are your favorite songs? What is your inspiration? Who are the guys and the girls that made you want to do music? And what are the songs that inspire you? Leave all of that below. Would love to have a talk about this.
Yeah, I would love to see a list of stuff that really gets people amped, and you know, and just see what everyone's listening to, and really get inspired by that. I think that would be amazing.
Yep, definitely.
And I'm really easy to find on the internet, so come find me if you have questions. Like, it may take a minute, but like, please reach out, and I'm happy to talk about stuff.
He's either Reid Shippen or Robot Lemon.
Robot Lemon. Yeah, Google Robot Lemon and you will find me.
Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.